Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy we love to hear. That means it is Nebraska Preps postgame, and it is truly a postgame as we recap the boys' state finals. And it's a lot going on since last Tuesday when we talked to one another. We were just previewing what was going to start on Wednesday. We blinked and it's over. And we've got champions from D2 to A. And it was, I don't know how compelling you thought it was or wasn't, but there were some good individual games along with performances.
Yeah. They had, had some really nice storylines along the way. Had a couple good championship games. Wasn't a great day of tight, competitive, well-played basketball, but there were a couple that that went down to the wire.
Are we spoiled?
Definitely. I think that's part of what this tournament showed, particularly in Class A, just the amount of talent that we've had over the years, the amount of talent we've had spread out and at the top, and just everything from that perspective, because the semis and the final of the last few years have been spectacular, so high level,
riveting.
And this year was a little different, unfortunately, but congrats to Bellevue West for basically doing what they've been doing all season long.
Yeah, do you want to start D2 or do you want to start in A and work backwards?
What do you think?
Let's go D2 and work.
Right.
Let's work towards the top with Parkview Christian kind of doing Parkview Christian things.
And that
people get on us about the similarity between the West Side and Wisconsin logo. Boy, the Patriots thing in New England, not a ton of difference with Parkview, but that's a good basketball team.
Yeah, and didn't start off. It was kind of a wild game where Why Not comes out firing, puts up 20 points in the first quarter. Parkview falls behind. They're down 8 after 1. And then Coach Godwin switched it up, put in a 1-2-2, started trapping a little, get more aggressive, and held Why Not to 7 points in the second and third quarters combined, including 1 in the second. Took lead at halftime, pulled away in the third quarter, and then managed to survive a furious rally from Why Not in the fourth quarter. Dylan Hine put the team on his back, scored 11 points in the fourth quarter, had 2 threes in a 3-point play in a stretch to cut the game down to 3. But Parkview hit its free throws and was able to hold on and pull out the 52-49 win to go back-to-back.
Yeah, easy to see the second quarter was the difference for you.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you scoring 1 point in a quarter, and credit to Why Not for they.
We saw that a couple of times in the finals where there were no field goals scored in a quarter by a team,
and that was one of them. Why Not? They were not shy about letting it fly from any and anywhere. They got 35 threes in that game. Unfortunately for them, they only made 9 of them for 26%. And that really was the game because Parkview didn't play great. They only hit 3 threes, but they outscored them in the paint 30-14. Didn't get a great game from Victor Kachalowski, who played a huge role in last year's championship, but Maurice Reed stepped up 17, hit a huge 3-point play in the fourth quarter, made some free throws. And Terrence Pittman, a junior, scored 13 as well. And they almost got a double-double from the big man, Kean Simonson, who had 11 points, 9 rebounds, and blocked a 3-pointer out of a baseline, out-of-bounds play that they drew up.
Was it good coming out of – that was a good play coming out of a break to get that shut off.
Yeah. And he just got a finger on it, and that was basically the ball game at that point because they go hit free throws, and the game's over, although – they did hit a 3 with about 9 seconds left, and Parkview, instead of letting the ball or letting the time run out, went and picked it up and chucked it deep. But fortunately,
I saw some interesting things happen with inbouncing the basketball this weekend.
But Kachalowski went and caught it and dribbled out the clock, and Parkview claimed the crown again, 52-49 in that one, back to back. for the Patriots. They had a couple of key guys that played a role in last year's championship. But they had some new guys as well, and able to get it done with the different looking group.
Yeah, we jumped to D1 with Johnson Brock and St. Pat's. St. Pat's coming in as the 1 seed. I think most people felt like this one would be pretty tightly contested, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, again, not both teams struggled a bit offensively. You shot 33% for Johnson Brock, 31% for St. Patrick's. So if you're a fan of high-paced, efficient offense, this wasn't the game, but it did go down to the wire. And credit to Johnson Brock's defensive game plan and their zone just made it difficult for St. Pat's to get up good looks, to get the ball inside. Brecken Erickson had been a monster throughout the tournament, and they held him to 10 points and just 8 shot attempts. Collapsing on him every single time he caught it, did a good job of denying him within that zone. St. Pat's struggled with turnovers, just couldn't find the gaps in that zone or kind of throwing up for grabs. And Johnson Brock did a good job of getting to the loose balls and getting deflections and all that. And they got just enough offense there. Nick Perriott hit a couple of threes out, off the bat to
he got off to a good start. It was amazing though, because he had the 2 quick threes early, and I was like, he's kind of feeling it. But to only finish with the 9 shot attempts, it was a good kind of adjustment with St. Pat's. That and limited possessions, I think, in that one for both teams is that you weren't getting a ton of shots up quickly.
Yeah, and again, the turnovers held the shot selection down. Johnson Brock, you mentioned Perriott only 9 attempts, still finished with 15. He got the breakaway layup to seal it.
I was glad to see that they got the little touchdown long pass, and he went and finished it. But
he said he wanted to dunk it, but he was worried about what his coach would have said if he missed it. So he just went safe and laid it up.
You saw him kind of trying to gather he was going to time his steps, but he went with the little right hand lay-in too. It was all good.
Yeah, and so credit. I mean, they've led throughout, but build up a big lead, and then St. Pat's furious rally behind 3-pointers on 3 straight possessions from Sam Trasinski. Stepped up huge, got that thing down to 2 points there when they were up 10 about 3 minutes into the fourth quarter. So St. Pat's could have gone away, but they did not knock down those shots. But unfortunately, they weren't able to score again in the last 90 seconds there.
Yeah. Jump over to C2 where, and it's funny, we'll talk about them because Amherst gave them all they wanted, but you and I were a little taken aback in the coaches poll about a month ago when Freeman got jumped, and we were thinking, wow, they played a pretty good schedule for a good basketball team. Was this right after Grand Island? I can't remember. Was it the Heartland Hoops Festival we were talking about it? Yeah. And we were a little surprised at the coaches poll. Freeman obviously didn't bat an eye at it. They're just people's opinions. And they did what Freeman does, and that's when a lot of basketball games.
Yeah, Amherst just could not find a way to score against them.
Just couldn't score.
8 points in the first half. Just credit to Freeman for making everything incredibly tough.
It's a good basketball team, I think.
They were 3 of 16 in the first half. Amherst was 3 of 16.
Played a good schedule. That was a dominant basketball team.
Yeah.
27-2, I believe they finished.
Yeah, and won, and I believe they won 17 straight. Yeah. Their only loss came to Tri-County.
Yeah,
and Tri-County at the Mudekas tournament beat 3 state champions and finished 4th in their own class. They didn't even win.
And ran into a buzzsaw in Amherst where I think they finished with 19 points in that one. That game was like 36-19, and I was thinking, oh boy, who's going to be able to score if they get Freeman after they hammered Cedar Catholic?
Yeah, and credit to Amherst for sticking with it. They ended the third quarter with a 10-0 run to cut that thing down close. And then Freeman just slammed the door shut. It was 29-24 going in the fourth quarter. And then Freeman just jumped all over him. And a couple of threes from Hayden Jennings kind of slammed the door shut. And he was, in addition to their defense, was as big a difference as anything. Not a big time scorer for them normally, but scored 12 points, went 4 of 6 from 3. Made up for, I mean, Carter Roos is a really good 3-point shooter. Was 0 for 2. Carter Niles went 1 for 5. Those are kind of your main scorers there. In addition, Taylor Petrosky, who did all his work at the line in this one. But to have your normal shooters not hitting shots, you need a guy like that to step up, and that's certainly what he did. And Coach McLaughlin gave him a lot of credit for being a star in his role. So you had 4 guys, 3 with 12 and 1 with 13. So Carter Roos has kind of been the guy for them all season long, averaging 19-ish points a game. But this one was complete total team balance. You had 2 guys with double-doubles in Roos and Petrosky. Again, Jennings and Niles led him in scoring with 13 points. So total team effort there, both ends of the court, and just a dominant fourth quarter to slam the door shut. And they outscored 24-11 in the fourth after Amherst did all that work to get back into the game.
Yeah, continuing along the lines of not very competitive. It was some run for Coach Weeks and his Bulldogs, but I tell you, Ashland Greenwood just – I have this strange affinity for the Kissinger family. They shared the ball so well, suffocating defensively. Boy, they were not to be denied.
Yeah, they really impressive performance.
Yes, I mean, goodness.
Auburn just could not create looks the entire game. They tried going inside early to Carson Leslie, who had a really nice tournament.
He's tough against Concordia.
Ashland Greenwood isn't the biggest team in the world.
How about how they defended Ogallala?
Yeah, well, yeah. If you want to go back, semifinal there, kind of the same thing happened throughout this tournament where
we like Gager, we like Caskey. They just locked those guys up.
Yeah, Caskey had 13, I believe. No other Ogallala player had more than 1 bucket, I believe. Just unreal performance. Just they could not generate an easy look and could not make almost any of the tough looks that they had to settle for. Really impressive performance there to end Ogallala's undefeated season. They all the way to the semifinal before they suffered their first loss. Credit to them, they bounced back and won the 3rd place game. So just phenomenal.
Yeah, and a toughie over Concordia, which they bounced back and they scored like 72 points. And it's interesting if you're looking at Ashland Greenwood, Jacob, they outscored their opponents 104-44 in the semis and the finals.
Well, they gave up 72 points the entire tournament.
Yeah.
24 a game. Like that.
Because Sydney only scored 28.
Yeah. Like it was just unreal performance by Ashland Greenwood throughout. And obviously last year won the state title with Cale Jacobson, kind of superstar leading them there. Obviously a performance I don't think any of us will ever forget against Kearney Catholic there to get them to the title game. And then they had the game winner from Evan Shepard in the championship. Much less drama this time around. They don't have a player as singularly talented as Cale Jacobson, but just the way these guys bought into defending, just up and down the lineup, 1 through 5, everybody just sat down and guarded, and Auburn just had no answers. Again, they tried to go to inside to Leslie early, and they just, whether it was double teams, whether it was straight up one-on-one, walling up in the post, just had 0 success trying to establish the post. And from there, things just fell apart. Their guards couldn't really generate anything. Couldn't get open looks. I mean, points in the paint were 40-10. Ashland Greenwood, they only took 3 3-pointers. Only hit 1. Brooks Kissinger knocked 1 down from the corner, finished with 16 points and 12 rebounds. And credit his big guys for boxing out and keeping the Auburn bigs off the glass and letting him go clean it up there. Cougar Kanzim, the other senior, the other returning starter, 13 points, didn't miss a shot from the field. And then had to come up big in the post after Dawson Teese picked up some early foul trouble. So just Ashland Greenwood, just really impressive performance. Dane Jacobson on the ball. Drake Zimmerman.
That's a handful.
That's crazy. You have Jacobson starting on the ball. He's guarding Maverick Binder. Those two have grown up playing against each other.
Know each other very well.
And then you bring in Zimmerman off the bench and put him on Binder and slide Jacobson off to somewhere else. Like those two guys are just so incredibly physical. Did the same thing to Gager, one of the best players in the class, had a really nice season, and just could not generate anything against those guys. Just physical. They move they move their feet really well. They work hard. Again, the phenomenal. We talked about Bellevue West and their defensive performance. Ashland Greenwood throughout this tournament, probably as impressive as anything I saw, because we thought C1 had a chance to be pretty spectacular.
Completely in agreement.
We
talked about it a ton.
And I mean, we talked about the heavy favorites could easily see chalk in the top 3 classes, no matter what. And I like Freeman as well in C2, but Wahoo kind of in the first round, same thing.
Inability to make free throws.
It just inability to score the entire time. They just couldn't. Nobody on their team could get into any kind of rhythm.
And what they finished from the foul line, was it 11 of 21 or 11 of 24, something like that?
Yep. I think it was 11 of 21.
Yeah.
No, so many games trying to keep them straight in my head, but they couldn't hit from the free throw line.
Missed the 2 big ones late.
And Marcus Glock was the only one that really got going, and that didn't happen until the fourth quarter when they're already down and trying to rally. And Auburn had already built up the big lead at that point. So knocking off Wahoo, kind of second year, I thought they had kind of figured some things out the way they had planned, and they were playing at such a high level down the stretch. But credit to Auburn for, as an 8 seed coming in, only 8 seed to make it out of the first round. And they didn't just do that. They made it all the way to championship. Really impressive performance against Concordia. That was one of the better games of the semifinal round. Just back and forth. Quentin McCaffrey hitting threes. Auburn coming back, and Nixon Ligori was really good.
I kind of like Ligori. He's just a pup too.
Yeah. So they'll be good again next year with Ligori and Binder coming back as their backcourt and figuring out some kind of role players to go around them. But impressive performance for Auburn. Obviously did not go well for them in the championship game, but finished as a runner-up as an 8 seed. That's a really impressive performance for that group. Yeah,
one of his better coaching jobs, and Coach Weeks has had quite a few. As we hop over to B, and boy, this was something. A back and forth matchup. We asked early on. We said, "Hey, listen, is this a collision course?" But a lot of people are like, "Hey, not so fast. We kind of like Crete. We kind of like York." Platteview handled York relatively easy, but boy, Crete gave Scott all they wanted. And I actually think, JP, playing that game the way that it shook out down the stretch really helped Scott keep their composure as they trailed in the fourth quarter against Platteview.
Yeah, and I mean, with Scott kind of down the stretch, obviously they lost in the sub-district final round. Didn't have some great offensive performances.
They didn't shoot it from behind the arc very well against Platteview either. They may have gone 0 for, if I remember right.
0 for 9. So you saw some vulnerabilities there, and then the way that Platteview shot the ball, the way they played in that semifinal round against York, like this could be interesting here. Obviously, the matchup is tough with the size, whereas Platteview plays basically 4 6-foot guards, and then Ryman Ziebert about what is he, about 6'5", 6'6", as their post. But then you take him out, they bring in another 6-foot
Once
guy.
he got in foul trouble, and it really, I mean, it's no coincidence. I mean, you look at kind of the breakdown in just the 2 quarters alone in free throw shooting in the second and fourth quarters. Scott goes 9 of 10 from the foul line in the second quarter, keeps him in it at the half. And then they go to the foul line 13 times in the fourth quarter because they were intent on hammering it inside to get points in the paint.
And I think Coach Juergens mentioned that just kind of the size eventually wore them down, just between the rebounding, between the feeding it in the post. And that's what he challenges guys. Like, you get off the bus, you look at 6'8", 6'9", 6'9" across the board. It looks good, but the size doesn't really matter unless you use it and consistently and constantly put the pressure on the other team.
How about the guy that we talked about coming out of the summer that I told you I liked for ETG? I said Brock Scholl is a great find for them, kind of a late addition from the original starting roster. He shows up on a couple of Saturday mornings at UBT. I told his dad, I said, hey, listen, not only are you going to be a good fit with them, I really like the way you play. Their tenacity between Healy, and Jake Brack, boy, they were relentless getting these 50-50 balls and crashing the glass.
Yeah. And Brock Scholl stepped up 10 points, 4 rebounds, had really nice play in the fourth quarter. That was key to them kind of taking control of the game. You mentioned Jack Healy, 7 points, 8 boards.
Made his free throws. That was big.
That was in the semi. 5 for 5 after going 6 for 11 earlier in the tournament. And he's the guy we talked about. Crete pushing Scott down to the wire. 2-point game. They got a chance to go tie it, and Aiden McDowell comes out timeout, gets downhill.
Good call.
And Healy coming in from the weak side swats that thing to secure the victory. Really impressive play. And he's a guy that he had a really great tournament for them. Like, I didn't know, like, coming into the year, like, 6'9", but like outside of that, like, what is he going to give them? He had some really nice games for them throughout the tournament, throughout the season. He really developed into a really impactful player for them to go with Jake Brack, obviously, and that guard play. And JJ Farron had a phenomenal tournament. To be perfectly honest, like I've seen JJ play a lot. I thought if Scott was going to lose, it would be JJ kind of shooting them out of the game where threes aren't falling, kept taking the tough ones. He, after hitting the 6 threes, including 5 in one quarter against Crete in the semifinals, did not score from outside, still finished with a game-high 21 points.
Yeah, do you know the difference? This is the first time I've seen him over this amount of time do this. He was getting to the rim relatively easy. Like, his ability to put it on the deck now, and he got fouled a ton. I think he shot 13. Yeah, I think he shot 13 free throws, and he missed the 3 3-pointers. But he was 6 of 12 and inside of 2. And when you let him get to the rim on you, it's going to be a long day because he's primarily known as a shooter.
Yeah, and he had the key play with the steal and breakaway layup late, reading the passing lanes and shooting that thing and taking it all the way. He also said he wanted to dunk it, but but yeah, just clutch plays from him down the stretch. And Jake Brack finished with 13 and 7 boards. He played
so he's one of those guys that, so I'm thinking about all the things that went right, didn't go right, and there were some tough calls down the stretch from an officiating standpoint. And I get it. I didn't love Plattview's shot selection for a stretch, especially in the second quarter and a little bit in the third quarter. I thought they took a lot of contested shots, but I was impressed with Scott's energy level in crunch time. I mean, they were trailing a good portion of that deal, and that outscored them 18-6 in the fourth quarter. And Platteview just couldn't stop the bleeding with them pounding it inside.
Yeah, and credit to Scott for their defensive game plan. And Platteview came out, built up the lead early.
Yeah, Mosman on fire.
It was 19 to 13 or 22 to 13 early in the second quarter, and then Scott kind of kicked it in a gear, came out, picked it up defensively, and credit to them for their game plan on Connor Milliken. Finished with 20 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, but it took him 21 shots. And he talked about too, just the length that Scott has, how that impacts your shooting. Because you're thinking about it, you got to put extra arc on it, you got to fade away a little bit farther around the basket. It's tough to get the shots up, and he was creating contact, but Scott did a good job of going pretty vertical. There's some maybe he could have gotten a few more calls than he did, particularly considering the one that went him at the end that unfortunately ended his career. But a lot of it kind of, Connor had been phenomenal throughout the tournament. Combination of shot making and getting to his spots. I thought in this game was the first time I really saw him kind of fall back into the trap that we had seen previously in the state tournament, where Platteview had kind of come up short, where just the tough mid-range fadeaways, going in.
And still somehow managed the 5 assists.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the thing that so there's 2 things that I liked about him. In the loss. Number one, how he handled the fifth foul. It's hard, right? You've had a storied career. You're kind of the pillar in that community. He was very good coming off the court. For the Connor Milliken I've known since the 3rd and 4th grade, who's extremely competitive, sometimes volatile, I was pretty impressed with him handling the environment. And the other thing, he was 9 of 11 from the foul line. And sometimes that can get away from him in terms of his consistency, but he gets fouled so much.
Yeah.
You know, he kept his composure, and I thought he was good from the foul line as well. It seemed like the 5 assists snuck up on me. Did it seem like that when you were watching the gameplay? I know Mosman had a couple of good finishes on those leaky runouts, and you'll take those, but I thought the 5 assists was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Mosman, I think, was probably the recipient of a few of those. But
yeah, Trey shot it well from distance.
3 of 6 from 3. The rest of the team was 3 of 16. So Connor, obviously, we're talking about the fouling out. It was it was a 2 or 3 point game at that point.
Yeah, he and Stewart got the gate in that one, and they had a lot of guys playing with 4 fouls. And
So what happened? So Scott is up. So they've got the lead here. Jake Brack. They're up 2. Jake Brack. They force a miss on a kind of roll to the rim. It rimmed out.
Oh yeah.
They were not able to. They were not able to secure the board between Brack and Healy going getting the board back and forth, and that's when Brack got it. Went up in traffic. 3 Trojans around him went up and missed, but they called the foul. Fortunately, they called it on Milliken. I did not think it was a foul.
I didn't either.
The thing is, though, like that's why Connor has to be smart enough to not give a foul. I think maybe his 3rd foul, 90 feet from the basket, just after rebound, just reaching in.
Yeah, from behind.
And it's still a cheap call. Like I don't know how much contact he actually made, but like you slap like that, a lot of refs will just call it because they're seeing that action. So like that's where it hurts. Like for a guy like Connor, you can't afford to give away fouls because of his playing style. Mm-hmm. So that's one. So the 5th foul was not in their control. That one was. You got to be smarter in that situation. But yeah, the foul trouble played huge. And Platteview, they hung tough even after losing Milliken. Obviously, Brack put him up. He split the free throws to put him up 3. Mosman comes back, gets fouled, cuts it to 1. JJ Farron hits 2 free throws with about a minute 15 left, pushed it to 3. Ryman Ziebert scored a little baseline reverse layup, so they're going back and forth. They foul Farron with about 53 seconds left. He hits both. And then that's when Farron gets the steal and the breakaway layup, and it's basically a ball game at that point. So Platteview continue to battle without Milliken, but it's tough without your best player, your kind of offensive engine. You need to be perfect down the stretch when you're trailing, and they made the first mistake, and Scott took advantage of it and was able to seal the victory there.
Yeah, nobody else had more than 4 points for Platteview, and when you have, 41 shots between Milliken, Draper, and Mosman, you got to get more from Alex Draper. He finished with 3 points on just 1 of 10 shooting. We called him the X Factor.
I've been saying it all season long, and unfortunately,
the other half of the law firm is what I like to call Mr. Draper.
And he was terrific in that semifinal. Milliken was great throughout. Mosman was great early. Draper came live in that 3rd quarter, went 3 for 3. They finished with 17. Those 3 combined. I think it was 12 of 21 from 3 or something like that, 13 of something like that. Just phenomenal shooting from those 3. And they needed all 3 of them to be going, and they got 2. And I mean, Connor didn't have a great offensive game either. Like I said,
from an efficiency standpoint,
but you need more than nobody else. I mean, Ziebert had 2 buckets. Nobody else had more than 1. So you got 35 points from two guys and 15 from the rest. Just not quite going to be enough to get it done against Scott there. So, but credit to Platteview. Like that was this 1 versus 2. We did not see them play during the regular season. This was the kind of game we've been waiting for all season, and went down to the wire. It was a heck of a game, and Scott was able to just pull it out and finish it off after coming up short in the championship last year.
Interesting.
You mentioned Milk in the way handle. I just want to mention he actually came into the post-game press conference along with Coach Brodsky. I believe the only player on a losing team to do that. I mean, pretty. I mean, he was asked to do it because of who he was and the career he's had, and he was phenomenal in there. Just second all-time leading scorer, leader in Class B, nearly 1,000 rebounds to go with his 2,600 and some points. Just phenomenal career. Milken is one of the best we've ever seen. And it's been a lot of fun to watch him compete over the last 4 years.
Absolutely. Class B is losing a good one. The state of Nebraska, in terms of all of high school basketball, is losing a good one. And he just happens to be one of my faves. So that one's going to leave a mark. But as we jump over to Class A, it seemed like just prolonging the inevitable, as Bellevue West has owned Millard North the last 5 quarters they've played. Unfortunately for Millard North, this was a continuation of the 4th quarter from a couple of weeks ago, the last time these two teams met.
Yeah, about a 20-point game during the regular season. And the way Millard North was playing, you're like, okay, Eli was making good decisions, setting guys up. You had Derek got going in the second half of the semifinals. Jacob Martin was huge off the bench, with double figures in both of the first 2 on efficient shooting. Skyland Williams had a great tournament shooting the ball.
He really and shout out to his perseverance. Hadn't always been easy, I'm sure, for him fitting in, new role, new guy. Offensively, his game hasn't gone the way that he's wanted to all year, but boy, did he answer the dinner bell this tournament.
Yeah, so you thought a lot of things going for them heading into this game, and then they missed their first 14 shots from the field. 14. They were down, I believe, 14-2 or 12-2 early in the second quarter. Didn't make a shot up until it was 12-2. Didn't make a shot until Jacob Martin put back on their 15th shot of the game, and just never Bellevue West didn't play great either offensively, but Millard North just was never able to get going and sustain it. It was 24-11 at halftime. So, I mean, not necessarily insurmountable if you could get something going. And then Millard North comes out of the second half and scoring the first few possessions. It's going back and forth. It's like, all right, finally, we got some offense. There were, I think, 15 points in the first couple of minutes of the half. And then Millard North cooled off. Bellevue West stayed hot and just kind of pulled that away from there the rest of the way.
23 turnovers between the two. I think Bellevue West, we've talked about it all year. You and I talked about it right after the holiday tournaments. You said, you know what, they just don't give up a ton of threes. And when you don't give up a ton of threes, you said, you know what else, DB? You have to make the easy 2s. And we saw in that first quarter in back-to-back games, Westside missed way too many bunnies. They got in their feelings. Millard North missed too many bunnies early. They got in their feelings. Because at some point, you just start to panic a little bit. And I think your shot selection kind of wavers. And then it just compounds because they come at you in waves. 3 fresh new bodies, 3 fresh new bodies, 3 fresh new bodies, 2 fresh. It's just like, while you're panicking, scrambling, playing from behind, they're pushing tempo, which is why they stretch leads out all the time. We saw it all year. Wash, rinse, repeat. Early lead, panic, cruise control, showtime.
Yep. And again, that's what this program has been under Doug Woodard. The faces change. The playing style stays the same. They're going to run it down your throat every chance you give them. And like I said, you just cannot. Misses at the rim gives them an unbalanced floor running back the other way. and you've got to be able to finish those opportunities. And Millard North just couldn't get anything to go down early on. And then at that point, I think the confidence starts to set in. You're kind of, now you're pressing like, all right, we got to score here, and it just doesn't happen. So it just,
what their starters go, I think they were 9 of 43 from the field, because Rollins was 1 of 10. Moni was 0 of 5.
Geth was 2 for 14.
Yeah, and got off to the 1 of 10 start. Monster, just the 7 shot attempts, 3 of 7. 0 for from behind the arc. And then, Skylar Williams was kind of the lone bright spot as
16 points, 5 of 5 from 3.
As he continued to be aggressive. Had the best plus minus of anybody that was on the floor for Millard North. But their inability to make 3-point field goals, I think, was ultimately the difference. They shot 33%, which at first blush isn't terrible. But when 5 of 5 happens from one guy, that's typically not going to get it done, because they kept their turnovers down. I thought that would be a key. And they turned it over 12 times. And I say only, but with how Bellevue West can speed you up, I felt like they handled that part of it pretty well.
Yeah, without a doubt. Turnovers weren't really an issue for the most part. It really was just the inability to convert the shots that they were taking or to generate other ones. And mentioned Williams, credit to him. 10 of 12 from 3 in the state tournament. Yeah. That's what they needed from him to make a run to the title. Unfortunately, they just couldn't quite get what they needed out of their star players to make this competitive for the full game. But again, it's just a testament to Bellevue West. And like, as you look at it, like even last year, they're not, in terms of defensive personnel, they're not the most imposing. Like last year they had William Kyle III, who
would
great
protect
shot
the
blocker,
rim.
great at sliding his feet on switches and all that. They don't have necessarily, like, Jane Jackson might be the best shot blocker on the team as a 6-foot guard. But they're just so good at being on the same page, rotating around, working hard on the ball to make sure there's no easy blow-bys, and steering you to where they want you to go on the floor and forcing you to take tough shots. They were always on a string. They're always on the same page. I mean, it was second possession of the game, maybe shot clock violation. Yeah. And that really fired them up from there. And like, they were just, Doug Woodard called this probably, said definitely the best
most connected defensive team,
the best defensive team he's ever coached in terms of complete buy-in, connectivity, the start to finish effort on the defensive end. He's had better individual defenders throughout his long and storied career. But in terms of 1 through 9 for the guys that play part of the rotation, no let up when bench guys came in. We talked about, there's a possession there where Jacob Barote picked up.
Eli? We were talking off air. He was guarding full court
and stayed in front, kept turning, moving his feet, kept turning him. Ended up forcing pass out. Like, you think that's a mismatch. All right, I got to go get a bucket here, and just he locked down, sat down, and got nothing out of it. So just everybody that stepped foot on that for Bellevue West came to play defensively. They were ready to kind of finish this thing off. 29-0, just the 3rd team in Class A ever to go undefeated, joining Millard South from back in the 80s and the Lee Coy Central Eagles. So that's pretty exclusive company there. And now Bellevue West, this team will, again, like, you look at the overall talent, like the last few years, I don't know that I'd pick this team to beat the Chucky teams and with Frankie, and in terms of overall talent, but
even some of Coach Woodard's runner-up teams is like, I don't think so. But listen, you gotta be able to say something. Elton Turner just 1 of 3. Jackson Stuvey just 1 of 6.
Even Josiah was
5 of 12, and he got the layups late. A Rope 1 of 3. McMorris just had the 1 field goal make. You look at the stats and you're like, how? But then you go back and you talk about what you just addressed defensively.
They 28% shooting for Millard North.
Absolutely. 0 of 12 in the first quarter, 4 of 12 in the second quarter, 5 of 15 in the third quarter, 6 of 14 in the fourth quarter. They just don't give up easy baskets.
Well, and gave up just 16 points in the paint, just 3 second chance points, despite missing 38 shots.
And how good was Polachek?
Yeah, huge coming off the bench, 11 points, hit a couple of the threes in the fourth quarter there to slam the door shut on them. So again, we talked about all year long, like defense, depth, number of guys that can step up, and that's this final game was kind of perfect encapsulation of what made this Bellevue West team special. Not necessarily the most talented offensively. They're very good on that end, but it really was the defense. And they're able to send Coach Woodard out on top with his 6th title at Bellevue West, 7th overall, I believe. He shared
the dean.
Shared the news with
he's the man
with Hurrdat Sports Mike Sauter afterward that that's it. He's walking away. Time for a new chapter for Bellevue West and for him. He's accomplished about everything you possibly can in that role, and I think he's happy going out with an undefeated season. And you could see with when Josiah Dotzler checked out, the emotion on their faces. I don't know that Josiah knew at that point, but Doug certainly did.
One of the great things about high school sports, we saw the embrace of Coach Brodsky and Connor Milliken, and the embrace of Josiah Dotzler and Coach Woodard. It makes you proud to be a part of state high school sports, man.
Without a doubt, 2 phenomenal players, had outstanding careers. Definitely going to miss those guys.
Tell you what, I'm not sure what we'll do next week, but we'll do something because guess what's right around the corner?
AAU season.
AAU basketball. So we'll be together. We'll bring it to you as best we can. We're just getting started. Going to be another fantastic week. Don't you dare miss it. It's Nebraska Preps Postgame.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.